Hey everybody, welcome back to Maker's Acres. I'm Bobby and today I've got something a little different. My neighbor asked me for some help getting some cameras set up at his property and I'm about 2,000 feet from him. I've already got some aerial access points, so I'm going to help him build a solution. The challenges here are that we got to get wireless access over to his property, then redistribute it. So I've got some long range 5 gigahertz access points, and I picked 5 gigahertz because they're less susceptible to interference, but they don't go as far as a 2.4 signal, but since we're only going 2,000 feet, it should be fine. And the other thing is he's got no power over there, so we have to build a solar solution. So we've got a solar panel and a battery, and then everything has to run off of this. I picked TP-Link. Nothing about this video is sponsored, so I'm just going to share with you what I bought and how it worked. I've got the long-range access points here, and then I've got the local access point for redistributing the signal for the wireless cameras. So the other thing that needs to happen here is this is all going to be run by battery, and that's a little bit of a challenge because these aren't really true PoE. They're their own weird version of PoE, and they run at 24 volts, and they're a passive PoE, so you can't connect them to a switch that provides PoE or anything like that. You have to use their built-in or their included injector for the 24 volts. Now this is kind of a bummer. I was looking at doing two 12-volt batteries and then running them in series so that way you could get 24 volts, but the problem is that range of between fully charged and fully depleted is not within the specs for these radios. So I ended up going with one 12-volt battery, and then I ended up getting a 12 to 24 volt converter. Hopefully it's pretty efficient and won't drain too much. I'm going to connect everything and I'm going to put it on my meter and see how much we're actually drawing. We've got a 100-watt solar panel and just a kind of a regular car battery, or I believe it's going to be one of the really nice Optima gel batteries because my buddy had one left over. We'll figure out how long this will run via solar. Luckily we're in Southern California, so it's pretty much sunny all the time. We never get rain. When I spec this stuff out, just using kind of worst case numbers, I was thinking it would run 3 or 4 days with no sunshine, just purely draining off the battery, and that was worst case scenario. So I need to build a special connector for all this, and then I'll be able to measure what the actual current draw is, and then I'll be able to give a better estimate of how long this stuff will run. So this is the injector I got. It's specifically built for solar power in that it's got a very wide range on the input. I think it's 9 to 32 volts and then a stable 24 volts on the output side. So this is going to be perfect, but I didn't want to run 2 of these. I've got the local access point for redistributing the 2.4 gigahertz signal, and then I've got the point-to-point 5 gigahertz link. And I could have bought 2 of these and run each of these on a separate, but instead I decided to build a separate cable. These inherently have some inefficiencies, so reducing the amount of power draw that we need is really what I want. So I'm going to build one special cable so this PoE will run both of these devices and minimize our excess usage. If these have the options to turn the LEDs off, which a lot of these do, I'm also going to turn those off to save excess power. So anyhow, let's build this special cable and let's see what our draw is. So this is a special cable I made for the PoE injector, and I've got the PoE power coming into this port, feeding to the correct strands on here, and then I've got PoE on both of these, and it's the 24 volt passive PoE. I did not put it back on the pins in this plug, but the reason why I did end up putting 2 plugs on this is because I need connection between the 2 radios. So I've got the feed radio feeding the distribution radio, and this is the easiest way to do that. Okay, so one of the first things I'm going to do is just see how much power this draws. So I've got it 12 volts, I've got it limited to 0.9 amps. I'm going to turn that on. So that shows me it's drawing 0.36 watts just being on. So that's burning power. Let's go ahead and test our plugs now. There we go, the power draw did not increase, so that's good. And now I'm just going to check the pins and make sure that I'm only getting power on the pins I expect, which should be 4, 5, 7, and 8. Help if I set this to DC. Nope, these probes are too thick to get in there. So check the voltage on these. They were 24 volts at pins 4, 5, 7, and 8. That's good. Didn't seem like it's putting voltage out on any other pins. So now it's time to connect the access points and see what our actual current draw is going to be. You can see now with nothing connected, we're drawing 0.36 watts, which is not great. That's just power bleeding out of there. Probably a lot of that's just the circuitry being on and then powering the light. Let's connect a load and see what it's going to draw. Okay, so if we connect this, well, we've got lights here. So you've gone up to 2 watts. It might take more power to boot. See, there we go, it dropped down a little bit. So I've got the other access point. Oh, there's a light on this, so it's good. PoE injector is working fine. Give that just a minute to settle. Okay, so it's settling a little under 5 watts here. So that's pretty good. We know everything's working here. So I'll call this a success. Just need to build the charging circuit, then get stuff up on the pole. Now that I know the actual current draw, I can better estimate the runtime. Assuming that the Optima battery is 72 amp hours, that gives us about 864 watts. If you divide that by 5 watts, you get almost 173 hours, or a little more than 7 days with no solar input. Now even on cloudy days, the panel will still probably be making between 10 and 40 watts, which is more than enough to keep this setup running indefinitely. Let's briefly talk about what I have going on here. I've got a solar charger. I just put the ins on here. Goes into this. This is my favorite solar charger I've found so far. 12 volt, goes up to 10 amp, 100 to 120 watt solar charger. What I really like about it is that it has diode protection, as well as a lot of these solar chargers will bleed power coming back from the battery just a little bit. This one does not, which is fantastic. I've got the positive terminal of the battery. I've got these big wires and fuses, so I've got a 15 amp fuse coming from the solar charger, and then I've got a 2 amp fuse going out to this little inverter. This is 9 volts to 32 volts, and then a solid 24 volts out. So that way you have a very consistent power supply at the radios. Some radios will have a wide range. On all the specs I found on these TP-Link stuff, they really want 24 volts, like plus or minus 5% or plus or minus 10%. This will keep a steady stream of power to the radios. The next thing I want to do is test all this, and the way we're going to do that is I'm going to put 12 volts on here to simulate it's a battery, and I'm going to output. You can see that I'm drawing some power here. It's kind of hard to see, but I've got a power light there. You can see here the solar charger is not on. That's great. That means it's not backfeeding any power. What we want to do is we want to simulate a solar cell on that. Find a couple of more leads. And so to simulate this, use the other side of this power supply, and I am going to move this voltage to something like 18 volts. See if we can get on these connectors. That's the only problem. So we'll just put some leads in these. When I power this on, this should come up. There we go. And this is a very simple charger. You've got 3 different stages you can select: the regular 12 volt, flooded battery, an AGM, or a 12 volt lithium battery. It's the only settings it has. And you can see that it gives you a real-time feed out of, what it's dropping the voltage to and how many amps it's drawing. It's not charging anything, it's not going to draw any amperage. Power supply is really not happy with what it's having to do. It's backfeeding a little bit and then no power is going out. Anyhow, I'm going to turn that off. Basically shows that all of this does work. We do have a solar charger that's trying to charge, and all this is running. There's no shorts. We're not drawing a ton of current, so I'm going to call that a success. So this is ready to go get mounted on the pole. So I really got to hand it to them. This is kind of a really neat piece of engineering. At least I think it is, as far as trying to minimize connectors and simplify it. So these just slide into each other. They've got slotted parts, so we'll get that on here. There we go. Do the same for the other side. There we go, that's pretty simple. So this is where the really clever engineering happens. There's these alignment pegs here, and then you can see that that fits in there. And so when you put this together, these actually keep the dish from coming out of alignment. That just pushes in there, both sides. And then it clicks in. There we go. It's all clicked in. No fasteners for any of that, which is awesome. Just make sure that everything is in there, and it is. And that's going to hold that together. Now there are 2 screws on each side just to keep it there, but man, this is pretty clever. And then there's a mount that goes on here. And this has guides for, so if you just push it on, it should click in. There we go. That's nice. Yeah, really, really well done. Really nice piece of injection molded plastic, and everything lines up. And then as far as the radio, this is also just a push in. That port goes down here. There we go. And that's it. That's assembled. I'll put these in and then we'll be good. There we go. All done.
Yay!
Hello. Do you think you're helping? Okay, so I mounted a pipe up here because this mount for the radio really wants to be on a pipe. So there's a little slot for the band cable. I've got this other thing up here, my other access point. The crows keep really messing with it. These really want to be at a 45, and I printed a spacer and put it in there, and the crows removed it. So I'm gonna try gluing it in this time. Okay, I got some glue on that. It's not the prettiest job, but you know, it's gonna keep the birds from removing that, which the crows really like to mess with this. When they fold those antennas down, coverage is just really crap. That really hurts that. Finally got that fixed. You can see we've got good visibility over the pasture, and I just added a secondary node on the other side. So we're pretty good, and it's, you know, the first rainstorm here. And I'm stuck up in this lift. So I've got this mounted. It's pointed to my property over there, just a couple thousand feet. So hopefully this will be good for that. Okay, I have this mount on here nice and tight. So now I'm gonna push the antenna on. In theory, should just, there we go. Now I just need to get that bolt in. So I've got my switch out in the barn. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of temporarily connect. Okay, there we go. Got a link, got the passive adapter. So that's a good sign. So let's go connect the other side and see what we get. Okay. I have a solar cell connected that I use for just charging batteries around the property. Just temporarily spliced in. Charging at 0.3 amps. You can see the battery's almost full anyways. So that's great. All the charging stuff is working. Let's get the Wi-Fi stuff connected. If we connect this, okay, blue light should turn on, and they are. So let's get my laptop running and see what's going on. Here's what's crazy is I just connected everything, holding this out the window, and things are loading. So let's try to run a speed test. Wow, that's pretty nuts. Okay, that's pretty great. Okay, just playing with their little utility here. Man, we've got great signal strength from me holding this. Okay, I just want to show you how stupid powerful these antennas are. I've got the antenna here in my lap, facing completely away, and we're still getting 100 megabits. How crazy is that? Just not pointed anywhere. I would have expected that to be the worst, but we're pointed completely away. Let's see, I'll change and I'll point directly at it. Yeah, almost changes a little bit, but yeah, that's that's what 23 dB of antenna gets you. Very sensitive, very powerful. That's crazy. I just need to get it up on the pole now. So as I was laying in bed last night, something kept bothering me about the link. And I think that was the fact that I never broke 100 megabits, no matter what I did. And granted, 100 megabits is fine, up and down for what we need over there, but there was still something bothering me about it. And to me, what it seemed like some physical limit that we were hitting. And what I mean by that is, since I never broke the 100 megabits, it was telling me that there was something capping it. And since it was around 90 to 95 megabits, it sure seemed like this was a 100 megabit limitation issue. And so when I woke up this morning, I took a look and found, boom, the smoking gun. The access point that serves that property, it showed that it was only linked up to the feed antenna via 100 megabit full duplex link. So that means that something's wrong between that little patch cable I made. So I'm gonna rebuild that cable, bypass the PoE injector except for bringing the power in, but I'm just gonna make that a cross-link cable. So I'm gonna take everything, set it on my bench. I'm gonna power it all back up and just confirm that I am seeing 100 megabits again. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pull it all apart and rebuild that into the cable and see if we can get back to 1,000 megabits. And then I'll go retest. Connected to it, you can see I've got 100 megabits full duplex. And so one of the reasons why I think I should do better is that in Wi-Fi, typically the advertised speeds are just a flat out lie. Once you add encryption and distance and overhead, all sorts of factors, I really think that these advertised speeds are about half. The feeding network says that it can cap out at 866 megabits. I really think with encryption and the distance, I really think that should be around 400 megabits. And then when you take it and you rebroadcast it, the 2.4 gigahertz side is in the couple hundred megabits. They say 400 megabits, so I should at least be able to get 200 megabits over there. If I can get 200 megabits over there, I will be ecstatic. Like I said, I'm already really happy with 100, but why I want to revisit this is if I am seeing it auto-negotiate down to 100 megabits, that means there's inherently something wrong with the cable. So long term, if it's already that sensitive and can't do gigabit over 10 or 15 feet, there's something adding noise or something to that cable where it doesn't like 1,000, which means in the long term, it could drop to 10 megabits or work intermittently. So I want to really get this back to 1,000 megabits, know that I've got a good strong signal between the two radios, and then we'll retest, and if I can get 200 megabits out there, that would be fantastic. So let's get this on the workbench and get it taken apart. So just for giggles, I'm going to reconnect all of that the factory way with the PoE injectors and see if I can get it to come up the way that it wants to come up. 1,000, so it does not like my cable at all, so I'm gonna scrap that cable and start with a new one. I honestly don't know if this is gonna work or just blow this up. Hopefully it's not gonna blow it up. I isolated the pairs instead of combining them, and it's gonna put 24 volts back on the non-PoE side, which is what I'm worried about it causing an issue. I'm not going to heat shrink these until I just verify that I didn't just blow up the power supply. I am, however, going to set it up in a way that won't cause those to short out. Let's start very low on the current, 0.1 amps. Let's turn it on. It came on. I'm going to go up a little bit. It's drawing 0.36 watts, which is what it was drawing before. So now the true test. Let's connect these, see if that still works. That one powered up. Okay, so both radios powered up. So now the question will be, are we actually getting gigabit? Okay, let's connect the laptop. 1,000 megabits. Yay! So that's great. Let's get this heat shrinked, buttoned up, and we'll go test it on site. So just to clarify why this didn't work on the first cable I made, was that I was being overly cautious and didn't want to backfeed power into the non-PoE side of the injector. Since I isolated the power pairs, the radios weren't able to communicate on those pairs, and it was only able to talk on 2 pairs. This is what was limiting this to 100 megabits and not allowing me to go to the full 1,000 megabits. Alright, we've got the battery feeding my PoE injector with my special cable. We've got the local access point here, which is redistributing the Wi-Fi that I'm bringing from our property. We have the point-to-point radio here, and we're going to do a speed test now. This is going to get better, obviously, when it's connected on the pole. Ooh, look at that. That's pretty great for what we're doing here. There's a lot of wireless overhead, and we're getting hundreds of megabits out to our site where I really only need probably 10. Fantastic. These radios have a built-in tool for testing speed directly between them. So we're going to go ahead and try this tool we're getting about 400 megabits down, you know, the said theoretical 866, and like I said before, with all the overhead and encryption, you really get about half of advertised speed, so 400 is kind of where I expected it to be. So that's great, a success, and now we just got to get it up on the pole. Okay, one thing I wanted to mention is that I 3D printed this bracket and glued it in place because the birds keep pulling it out, or I should say the crows or the ravens keep ripping the one out at my property, and I glued the last one with hot glue. They still got it off. This one is epoxied in, or I should say E6000. Hopefully the birds won't rip that one out. Okay, I found this platform from one of the boxes we converted into a goat barn. This is going to be great for a work platform. At least I think it'll be great for one. Guess we'll find out. Okay, that's up there. The mount for the battery would just need to be modified, which we're going to weld. Things are going up next. And here is everything tucked into this box. You can see that the solar charger is working just great. I've got the access point down here on the pole. I know that's not perfect, but that's just temporary until I 3D print a special mount that will put this on the solar panel and get it up a little higher and away from this metal pole. And as you can see, the solar panels already started attracting some local wildlife. With the setup complete, I tested everything, and now it was just time to put cameras up all over the property. And for security reasons, I'm only going to show you one of these, but you get the idea. And here's one more shot of the tower with my custom designed 3D print for the access point. Hey everybody, Future Bobby here. I just want to let you know, since I installed that, this thing has run rock solid for almost 3 years. It has just been fantastic. Haven't had to reboot anything. Haven't had this go down for lack of sun. It had just been 100% reliable. Couldn't be happier with that. Even with all the bird poop on the solar panel, haven't had anything go down. We've washed it maybe a couple of times, just spraying it with the hose. The only thing that I've done, which there'll be a future video about, is I've upgraded the Wi-Fi distribution antenna. I found some that were rated for large properties, and man, that made a hell of a difference. The Wi-Fi has been a little weak on the outside edges, which is why when this big access point came available for the local redistribution, I swapped to that just about a month ago. But the local Wi-Fi was always a little weak with that access point. This one that I've got now is so much better. The only problem is it is a different version of PoE, which I'll cover in one of my future videos. I'm now getting 100 to 200 megabits, 600, 700, 800 feet away from this base, which is amazing. On the other access point, I was getting between 1 and 5 megabits at that distance, if it was still holding on at all. If you're following along at home and trying to build something similar, I'm still using the same backhauls. They've been rock solid. Anyhow, that's going to wrap up this video. So I wanted to thank everybody for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. It doesn't cost you guys a dime, and it really helps me out. Really trying to push this channel and hopefully maybe go full time with it, but you know, that's up to you guys. So once again, I'm sponsored by me. Please, I really appreciate it. If you'll like, share, and subscribe, it'll really help me, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. So thanks again, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
It's quite scenic with the moon right there.
Hi, buddy. Thanks. Till next time, I'm Bobby. I don't know. What?
Who are you, Bobby?
Let me try that again. My meter. So this is where the really clever engineering happens. My goats, if they'll be quiet. So this is a special cable I made. Hi, you can't just keep talking over my video, little girl. Now I need to, and that was my bottleneck. And that was my bottleneck. So now, and that was my bottleneck. So now, and that was my bottleneck. So I'm gonna build this special ether. Instead of using 2 of these, oh yeah, what do I want to say here? I'm really susceptible. Waiting for sirens. Literally not touching anything. Something just fell off the shelves. Interesting. Let's just try the whole thing from the top.